Now we're going to put the wheel in the stand and true it up and check it for trueness and roundness, and then once we've done that, we'll put a bit more tension on the spokes and then we'll true it again. We don't want to put too much tension on before we've checked it for true, because if there's any little errors crept into our build, if we put too much tension on, it may damage the rim. Okay, the wheel's hot off the table and we're going to check it for true, bearing in mind we've got to put a bit more tension on these spokes yet. And for something that we've just built with a second-hand rim, it's not too bad. It's running out a little bit and we've got to determine the centre of the runouts. And you can hear, you can do it by sight or by sound. You can hear the sound there now. If it was a brand new rim, we'd be a bit reluctant to do it by sound. It's probably running out both ways from side to side. And so we're going to have to tighten and loosen some spokes. I reckon this spoke here is about the centre of one of the runouts, or buckles if you like to call it that. And we're just going to give that like half a turn tighter. And that took that out. And then we go this way and it's actually running out to that side. So I wound this gauge in to try and determine what to do, and I'm going to try and find the centre of that one. And it's about there. And what we can do to see whether that is because we've tightened this spoke up incorrectly when we built the wheel, we can actually have a look down at the top of the nipple to see how far the spoke is protruding. And it looks pretty much the same as all the others, so we can't use that as an indication about what to do with it. But I'm going to loosen that spoke because it's the one that's just at the centre of the run out. So I'm going to loosen it a half a turn, and that made a big difference. That moved the rim over almost a millimetre, just that half a turn. We'll wind this gauge in a little bit further to get it a bit closer. And the whole rim is now only probably a millimetre out of true. So at this point we have to determine which way we pull out that millimetre, because if we go the wrong way we'll make the rim out of centre to the hub. If we go the right way we'll be correcting any out of centre. At this stage we need to determine which way the wheel needs to be trued so that we keep the rim in the centre of the hub flanges. And so we need our most important tool, which is the centering gauge. And what we do with this is we put it on one side of the rim and we adjust it so that this pointer goes in against the end of the cone of the axle. I can see there that this is adjusted correctly. We take it off, move it to the other side, do the same thing again. It's virtually exactly in the centre as we look at it. There's maybe a half a millimetre gap on this side. So in order for this rim to be in the centre of the hub flanges, it needs to go this way a quarter of a millimetre, which is nothing really, but we need to keep that in mind when we're truing the wheel, that it is virtually centred except for the fact that it could go just a little bit to the right to make it perfect. And that helps us to determine which way to pull the buckles out. There's only 1 millimetre buckle in the rim at the moment, so I just have to be mindful of which way to remove that run out. So I've got the point there where the centering gauge was on. I bring it down to the to the gauge down here, and I can see there's a millimetre gap, and it's actually where it's running out. So bearing in mind we needed to err on the side of going to the right, I'll just tighten up a series of spokes around this run out. I'm keeping my fingers on the first spoke I attacked so I can keep a bit of an eye on where I started, and I'm just doing a quarter of a turn, and that's almost removed that 1 millimetre run out that was there. And this part of the process really it's only perfected by experience. When you've done dozens or hundreds of wheels, this part of it becomes second nature, and it's very quick. So once again, I've got a little bit of run out in another place. It's about 0.5 millimetre that I need to go this way. So I need to find the centre of that run out, and in this case I'm going to loosen this particular spoke, which is in the centre of the run out. Just going to loosen it a quarter of a turn, see what difference that makes. And that got rid of the run out, just 1/4 of a turn. I've found the centre of another run out here, and I'm just going to loosen the spoke a quarter of a turn. Didn't make any difference, so I'll go to the next one. Made a big difference. And we've got this wheel now back to probably better than it was before we started, before we re-spoked it. There's hardly any deviation there at all now. So it wasn't a big job to get it from being laced to being fairly true. So now we have to check it for roundness or up and down. So we just use this little gauge here. Now to a certain extent, especially with the second-hand rim, you can only get it so round. Anything within about 1 millimetre would be considered to be acceptable, and that amount of out of round will be taken out almost by the tyre. If this was a very high class rim for a road bike and the customer might ride it at say 80 or 90 kilometres an hour, you would have to be a lot more particular about the roundness. But for a mountain bike rim, second-hand rim, old bike, you'll only get it so close to being perfect. So I'm just going to have a look at this, and it's actually rounder now than it was with the old spokes in it, and it wasn't too bad before. So it's slightly out of round, but it's very slight as these things go. If it was a very high class road wheel, as I say, it would need to be slightly better than that, but it's pretty good.